Welcome everyone to site. So here we are on the island on a really sunny day. First trench I'm going to take you through at the minute is trench number 8, which is a brand new trench this year. Only a small one, but the reason that we put this trench in was because we were looking for the northern limit of the cemetery. So we've got this large cemetery that expands over most of the area behind us where we're digging. We've got skeletons in every trench, and this year we wanted to find the northern extent of that cemetery. And the answer to that question is we haven't found it. We've got more burials in Trench 8. They seem to be a bit more spaced out. They're not as sort of churned up through ploughing and through other intercutting graves over the years. So that suggests to us that we are coming towards the edge of the cemetery. It's getting less dense as we come further north, but we haven't found that actual extent, the boundary yet. We're still within the cemetery limits. So what we did last week was we had some students in here and they excavated out one of our graves just to kind of prove that it definitely was a grave. As it was, we had a skeleton come out of there which has been carefully excavated, sent to the finds room, and that has been washed and cleaned and processed now, and that will go off to our specialists after the dig who will assess it and tell us a bit more about it. And really that's the story of Trench 8. It's finished now. They did a great job of digging it, recording it. So yeah, Trench 8 has answered our questions and we can put it to bed for this year and move on to other stuff next year. So this is our first trench. I think we'll now move over to trench number 1, which is not too far away. It's just behind, just to the south. Trench 1 is the very first trench that we ever put in on Lindisfarne in 2016. And we've gone back to it last year and also come back again this year. Because we had a number of interesting features we wanted to keep looking at that we discovered last year. For example, we had a gully, a stone-lined cut gully into the ground. We wanted to know where that was going, what direction it was travelling in. And we also had a number of burials, one of which was particularly interesting that Karen found last year. We excavated half of it out, and our osteologist told us that it had evidence of possible bone cancer, which is very sort of almost unique for this period. We haven't found too many of those over the course of all archaeology in the country. So we came back again this year to excavate the rest of that skeleton, so we had the complete thing, and the osteologist can look at it as one complete body and tell us more about it. Other things that we've got in this trench, we have a lot, as you can see, a lot of stones. Some of these stones are arranged in lines. For example, at the back of the trench we have, you can probably just about see 2 or 3 really large blocks of stone, and then just behind them we have some flat, almost paving like slabs. So the questions that we had is, do we have some sort of wall or structure and a surface, a sort of a flagged or paved surface? Is that what's going on in this area? So we've come back, we've investigated that this year, trying to look for more evidence of, is that the case? What have we got? Do we have a structure? How old is it? And what we found instead was lots more skeletons, lots more burials. So just below where the stones are, there are a number of skulls, about 3 or 4 skulls just popping through the top of the ground, which is showing us again that story that the cemetery is getting more dense, more occupied as we come further south towards the centre of Sanctuary Close, just behind the priory. So yeah, this trench has been really interesting, very productive this year. We've had a lot out of it, lots of bones, lots of potential walls and surfaces. So it's been a worthwhile task, and yeah, next year we'll probably come back and do a little bit more, see if we can make even more sense out of our structures and get any more dating evidence out of them. So yeah, that's kind of trench 1. What we'll do now is start to move our way across to trench 2 east. And trench 2 is another one of our trenches that was started in 2016, and it is split between east and west because it has a big power cable running between both of the trenches. So we didn't want to obviously dig through that, that wouldn't have gone too well for us. So we split the two trenches in half for that reason. So we're just going to head over to trench 2 east, and we'll see what they've been discovering in there. We've had some really nice discoveries, as we'll start to talk about once we arrive. A lot more skeletons, a lot more graves, some more walls, some more big masonry blocks, some more possible surfaces, and of course our focal grave, our focal burial that we will have been talking about in previous years, if anyone has been listening to any of our previous tours as well. So we're nearly there, we're just coming to the back of trench 2 east now. And here we are. So the first thing that we can see are, we've got these really big masonry blocks. They're tooled. You might be able to see the tool markings on them just here, like that. And also on the one next to it, we have some even nicer tool markings. You can see them going diagonally across, and some coming just like this as well. So really big chunks of stone. These have been moved from their original position. We've fully recorded them, so we moved them to see what we could do, what we could see underneath. So that's why they're over here, and we were able to see those really nice markings on them. So as we move further into the trench, hopefully you can see our adventurers here are cleaning up our possible sort of paved or flagged surface just outside where those stones originally were. So they're looking really nice now. As you can see, you could easily walk across that as a nice flat surface. And really we want to be finding out more about that. How far does it extend? Are there any more burials cut through it or underneath it? That will be one of our questions probably for next year. And really to get a bit more of an understanding of how old it is, what it was for, why is it here? Those fundamental questions that we're interested in answering. Just next to this surface we have our charnel pit. It was discovered a few years ago, and what it is a big pit that was dug in the ground, and a lot of the bones from previously disturbed burials were deposited in here, just really to keep them in one place, to save them from being disturbed yet again by more grave digging, and putting more people in the ground. They've gathered them all together and put them in one place. It's a bit like for safekeeping, almost like a crypt today, although this time they've just dug a hole in the ground to keep them all in one place. As we turn just to the right here, you'll notice this really big hole in the ground that we've excavated. This is part of our focal grave. We've had now 7 individuals out of this one small area in the trench. They were all buried one on top of the other. We had some of our stone lining that we've excavated out now. Last year, some of you might remember that we had some name stones out of that stone lining. They were really nice. So we've excavated that out, we've removed them now, we've taken out the bodies, we've got to the bottom at last, we think. And that is, that's where our focal grave was, as our helipad is now demonstrating for us. As we move further up in the trench, start to see more and more burials appearing. We have a skull just here, another one coming up just next to us where Ali is, and under every one of these tarps is another burial, another skeleton that has been put in here. So again, we're in a really dense part of the cemetery, intercutting graves, graves on top of graves. And that was a story last year and previous years in this area. It's been one of the densest parts of the site in terms of burials and cemetery. So yeah, that's kind of the story of Trench 2 East. We've been getting lots of finds out of here, some examples from the tray as we were getting across site, pieces of shell, sort of seafood would be the things they're eating. Quartz pebbles, these are the sort of things that they would have been perhaps using to mark their graves out, so they would have been shining relatively nicely and white on the top of the graves to mark them out. And obviously lots of bone. As this is a cemetery, there will be bones all the time. Some of it is, well, a lot of it is not what we call articulated, it's disarticulated. It's been sort of churned up in the ground, and we find them not where they should be in relation to the body. So we just collect them together and clean them up and process them as we would anything else. Some other little things we've been finding, St. Cuthbert's beads. Some of these are really, really tiny, and some of them are a little bit bigger, like this one here. I don't know if you can see that. These are actually fossils, and we keep them because there is some evidence of them being almost drilled through and used as a necklace. The centre of the fossil is almost like a star shape. And so they can be sometimes drilled through and turned into necklaces. So yeah, a nice little selection of finds from here, which seems to be quite similar to a lot of the finds that we've had throughout the site as a whole in general. So yeah, that's Trench 2 East. I think now we'll head over to Trench 2 West. So the western side is our biggest trench. It seems to have grown a lot over the years. It started off not too dissimilar in size to this one here, but it's grown and got bigger and bigger. And it's also moved further north as well. Last year, the back of Trench 2 West was around about here where I am just now. But we've moved it quite a lot further north, just to really find out more about the features that we've uncovered last year that I'll show you very shortly. So here we are now, just about to head into Trench 2 West. And the first area that we come to is where Chris is digging in our metalworking area. So if you've been following us before, you may have heard that we've been talking quite a lot about our metalworking area over the years. It's been one of those things that we first discovered a good sort of 3 or 4 years ago now. And we've been struggling to get to grips with it. We'd found evidence of copper, metalworking slag, other metallurgical debris, hearth linings, things like that, but nothing ever seemed to be what we call in situ, so in the original place that it was found. We thought we'd found pits, we thought we'd found some features, but none of it ever was very clear and didn't entirely make sense. And this year we've answered the question as to why that is. What's been happening is we've got a lot of burials, basically. We've had 4 individuals out of this very small area here. We had one just under where the tarp is that we left in the ground. We had one just in this little rectangle here that we've lifted out. There was another one directly above that, and we've also just discovered yet another one where Chris is digging just now. By carefully excavating out all of these graves one at a time, we've been able to reconstruct exactly where the original metalworking pit or hearth was. That's kind of our latest, newest discovery in the metalworking area. We found evidence of in situ burning. It's been heavily what we call truncated, so dug away, cut away by later burials, but we do have hints of the burnt edge, the original burnt edge of the metalworking pit just coming through here, where it's that intense reds and blacks. That is the original edge of the pit there. We pick it up again just further over towards the middle. We have more of that burnt black and red here. and a little bit here as well, and also just towards the western edge as well. So we've got pieces of our original in situ metalworking hearth or pit, but it has been heavily dug through, cut through by later burials. We had 3 post holes right next to it. They luckily did survive the process of burials. Just though, only just, as you can see, the burial is right next to them. It's cut right the way through the side. So they were quite lucky to survive. So this has come on leaps and bounds this year. Hopefully next year we might be able to fully answer it, fully get to the bottom of that pit. Okay then, so moving on to the next part. Here we are with a big wall. You might be able to see we've got these large mudstone facing stones on either side of an east-west aligned wall. This wall has at some point collapsed, because you can see just next to it, towards the north, we have these large boulders that seem to have tumbled over when the wall collapsed. They have collapsed onto what we think is a surface, some sort of floor surface, where we've got these cobbles here, these nice flat cobbles. So we're hoping this is our original sort of floor surface, that when the wall collapsed, that rubble fell onto. And one thing that you might also be able to see here is how the wall is almost at an angle. It seems to be like it's fallen down, it's slumped down. It's on a bit of a strange angle. And the answer to that will become apparent in a few moments as we go further north. But moving on to the next area of our trench, as you can see just behind me here, we have another really big thick wall. We've got one end of it here. These is one face on this side, and as I move over, this is the other face of it just here. So another really large, really wide wall. And the interesting thing about both of these walls, this one and the one we've just looked at, is that they must be early. All of the burials that we've had are either cut through the wall, so they've come through at a later time and dug away parts of the wall, or there doesn't seem to be any burials at all underneath them. So that tells us that they must at least be earlier than the cemetery. And this particular wall here, last year, is where we found a piece of Samian pottery. So that's a Roman find. It was just the one, so we can't say that this is a Roman wall necessarily. But what we have done is taken samples of bone and charcoal that was found in and amongst and underneath these walls to send them off for radiocarbon dating so that we can find out how old they are. So, a couple of really big walls that you might remember from last year. And also, what you might remember from last year is our stone-lined drain, just here. Really nicely constructed. It seems to be a channel that's leading all the way through the width of the trench. It skirts around this big slab. And what I think might be happening is these big slabs that I'm walking on are some sort of pathway, maybe across the drain. The drain would have been stone capped as well, leading towards a new discovery this year, a stone-lined box. When we first found this box, we thought perhaps it was a small stone-lined burial, but we've had a number of other stone-lined burials out of here over the years. But when we excavated the box out, there were no bones in it, no human bones anyway. So another theory is that it's some sort of water storage tank. It's clay lined, there seems to be clay underneath it and along the sides to keep it watertight. And we have a similar story with our stone-lined drain. It's been packed with clay as well to keep it watertight. So perhaps there's water management going on here. Exactly what that's for is a bit more tricky to say, but it could be contemporary or perhaps later than the walls that we've just looked at. We knew that this stone line drain was here from last year, but what we didn't know is how far it extended. This year we pushed our trench, or our excavation slot anyway, further to the west, and we found a continuation. So we have the drain keeps going towards Gillen just behind her. In this area it seems to get a little bit more loose and craggy, and sort of breaks apart and sort of peters out and disappears towards the back of where Jill is. So what we think is happening is that over the years burials have truncated it, they've cut it away. The lime kiln has also come through here and probably dug it away as well. We've had also 2 neonatal burials here this year, one of them which Jill is excavating just now, and one of them that was just behind me. So these are other things that could have dug away parts of the drain over time. So yeah, another exciting area and exciting developments this year with the drain extending, the walls becoming bigger, and the potential for them being quite early as well. And you'll notice also, as I was mentioning earlier about the wall seemed to be slumping down, our drain also appears to be slumping down as well, and our large slab. The reason that's important is because of the next thing that I'm about to take you over to see, which is up towards the north. What we discovered this year that we thought, for the last couple of years we had inklings might have existed, was that there was a long linear ditch running right the way through the trench from north through to south. And that's exactly what we found. Caroline and Lana and Joe here have been excavating out our ditch expertly. We've been a little bit hampered by the presence of yet more burials. We've had another 3 individuals in here that have been sort of cut into, dug into the ditch. We've excavated them out carefully, and now we are through that burial layer and we are properly into the lower fills of the ditch, and we're hoping to excavate that out fully by the end of the dig this year. What's particularly exciting about this ditch is that its potential, well, it is the earliest feature that we've got on site so far. It could even be possibly prehistoric, probably Iron Age if it was. Everything else in the trench either cuts through it or overlies it. It must be the earliest feature that we have on site, and the reason we think it could be prehistoric is that the walls that overlie it, they don't fit with that sort of sequence of early medieval monastery. They're very, we wouldn't expect stone constructions like that. So there's a potential that we have an early large sort of structure, stone built structure, which if they are on top of the ditch means it must be earlier than that as well. So what we want to do is get to the bottom, get some nice datable material out of it, get some samples from it, something that we might be able to send for carbon dating and give us a really fixed date on exactly how old this ditch is. Potentially we could be pushing the story of our site back from the early medieval right the way through the Roman and into the prehistoric, which is a really exciting thing for this year. Obviously we've still got to prove that, but that's something that seems to be an increasing possibility, which is really exciting. So, I mean, I've had a great year in this trench, and I think all of our lovely students and venturers also have as well. And across the site as a whole, it's been another really exciting year. I hope you've all enjoyed a little tour of site today. And now I'm going to head back to Jenny, who I think is going to talk about questions. Thank you.